welcome to the Ourlads Gambling Show. What do you think of that new intro, Tucker?
That was great. I love it.
All right. Love that enthusiasm. Today we are diving into Super Bowl champion specials, favorite win totals, and playoff team bets, plus Coach of the Year odds, offensive, defensive player odds, and any NFL Week 1 lines that we like now. So joining us today is Munaf The Machine Manji from Sports Gambling Podcast Network. And I've also, as always, got the Duke of Depth Charts, Tucker Moss, for all the action. Munaf, how's it going, my man?
I am doing well, man. You got me at the right time as well, because we are NBA junkies, so NBA season's winding down. So it was a great time to start diving into some NFL stuff. Started doing my prep work about 2 weeks ago. So definitely looking forward to the NFL season and glad to be here with you, gentlemen.
Yeah, we're glad to have you as well. Like I said, we're going to do some NFL champion specials. I'm going to pull this up. I just think this is interesting to talk about. I'm going to share my screen. Make sure I'm just sharing the right screen here. Yeah, did you get a chance to look at this at all, Munaf?
I did, yeah. The specials where it's broken down by state and division.
Yeah. So I guess my question is, it's broken up by conference, broken up by division, and broken up by state. So I thought we would just go through this and talk about who we like, and then what would be the best odds to gamble on for these kind of things. So obviously, that any other state at plus 175 would include the Kansas City Chiefs, and which are the favorite right now. And then California at plus 450 would include the 49ers, which are the second favorite overall on the odds. But you also get the Rams and the Chargers by betting California. Or NFC West, for example, is also at plus 450. So you would get the Cardinals, you get the Rams, you get Seattle too. So which would, like, if you like the 49ers, who do you like better with those odds, Munaf? Like, which bet?
So I think that they have it pretty much lined up where if you like the NFC West in California, it's still plus 450 because it's San Francisco 49ers. I mean, maybe you could have a discussion about the Rams in there as well. But so the winning conference at AFC, I was intrigued by at minus 125. For the six favorites, McKee, are AFC teams, right? Kansas City, Baltimore, the Bills, and the Bengals. And then you have, from the NFC, you have the 49ers, like you mentioned, and also the Lions. So I think for me, I mean, AFC North is favored for a reason. You have, I think, for sure, the Baltimore Ravens. You could talk about Cincinnati. You're going to get Joe Burrow back. They're always a threat. And then Cleveland Browns, I mean, look, last year I know they dealt with a lot of injuries and Joe Flacco. You get Deshaun Watson back. Is he going to be able to improve? Possibly, but they have one of the better defenses in the entire National Football League. And you'll get Nick Chubb back as well. Amari Cooper is going to take another step as well. So I think that team is loaded. So AFC North, I think you're rightfully favored at plus 425. So those are the two I was, really intrigued by. From the state perspective, nothing really stood out to me. I think you mentioned, right, with any other state, you get the Kansas City Chiefs at plus 175 when you have Patrick Mahomes on your side. That's always a plus. But the most intriguing word for me, I was focused on the AFC side. If you want to take the conference at minus 125, I know it's boring. It's AFC North. They're the favorite for a reason at plus 425. Those are the two that I was looking at. Yeah.
Did you get a chance to study this at all, Tucker?
I didn't know about the winning state one. That's pretty interesting.
Yeah. Well, you could go, any other state and get your Atlanta Falcons in there. But
I'd probably just go with the NFC.
Also get my Cardinals with any other state as well. So huge stuff. Maryland at plus 800, you get the Ravens. So you wouldn't want
and Washington.
And Washington. Yeah, that's what I was going to say. But like, who cares about Washington, right? Is it technically? But that's the thing. I don't get it. Like, is it technically Washington, even though that's DC? Because they say New Jersey and New York.
I think Washington is Landover.
Yeah, Landover. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's technically in Maryland. Yeah.
It's technically in Maryland, so you do get Washington there. Texas, you get Munaf's Houston's and Dallas.
I feel like just, looking at ones that have like multiple really good teams, like Texas, I feel like is pretty. I mean, I don't know about the Cowboys, but Texans are really good, and then Ohio also, like you mentioned, having both Browns and Bengals. I mean, those are both, all four of those teams are all pretty nice playoff contenders, and if you make the playoffs, anything can happen. And
the one I'm most surprised about, actually, with the longest odds on there is Pennsylvania, just because Philadelphia Eagles could bounce back this year. They were really good up until the end of last season, or at least they were winning. You could argue they were fraudulent the whole year if that's the way you feel. But any love for the Eagles coming back here? I guess if you really like the Eagles, you would just want to bet them straight up to be the winner rather than also including Pittsburgh in there. You're not going to get anything from Pittsburgh, right, Munaf?
Yeah, I mean, it's 17-1 right now for the Eagles to win it. I'm very, very down on the Steelers, and we'll talk about that later on. But yeah, I mean, if you like the Eagles, you again, 17-1 right now would be better than obviously 12-1 for Pennsylvania. Don't expect a lot out of the Steelers this upcoming season.
Yeah. So I'm thinking if you just to put a button on that conversation we were having earlier, if you like the 49ers and I would go ahead and bet like the NFC West at plus 450. You get 4 teams versus 3 teams, right? If you bet California, and I don't have a lot of love for the Chargers winning it all this year. So, that's what you're including, especially in that loaded AFC, as Munaf said. Anything else here, or could we move on?
I think we're good.
All right. I got a quick ad, and then we'll move to our next topic. Are you lost in a sea of stats, drowning in draft picks? Dive into Ourlads depth charts, where the Duke of depth charts, Tucker Moss, throws you a lifeline of insider info. It's like having a cheat sheet for football fanatics without the guilt. Go to ourlads.com and transform your football knowledge today. How was that ad read, Tucker?
That was much improved from last time.
He grades my ad reads, Munaf. So that's why I had to ask him. So we're moving on to our favorite team win totals and teams to make or miss the playoff bets. Did you have some you wanted to jump to right away, Munaf? I wrote down some ones that had plus odds that intrigued me that I wanted to discuss with you. But go ahead and tell me some of your favorites.
Yeah, I mentioned the Steelers, right? I like their under on their wins. Like, I know I'm going against the whole trend of Mike Tomlin's had at least a 500 or a winning season in his entire career. But now it's 2 things for me. Number one, you have 2 quarterbacks in the room. When you have 2 quarterbacks, you have no quarterbacks. Russell Wilson, we saw last year, was abysmal for this, or for then the Denver Broncos with Sean Payton there. Now he goes over to Pittsburgh. You add Justin Fields here. I think Justin Fields could resurrect his career there. I mean, he finished off very, very strong in the back half of the season last year for the Chicago Bears. Obviously, them getting the number 1 pick, they were, going to take Caleb Williams to be their future franchise quarterback. So, but the main thing for me, guys, for the Pittsburgh Steelers is you take a look at their schedule in the second half of the year after they come off of the bye week. So their bye week is going to be, I believe it was week 9. Week 9 for the Steelers. All 6 of their division games are week 11 and later for the Pittsburgh Steelers. The first game coming off of the bye, they go to Washington to play the Commanders. Then they have the Ravens at home. They go to Cleveland. They go to Cincinnati. They have Cleveland at home again. And then they have to go to Philly, to Baltimore, and they wrap up the season against the Chiefs at home and then against the Bengals at home. I mean, that is an absolute gauntlet for me for this Pittsburgh Steelers team. So just kind of looking at their schedule, it's tough. I mean, they start again with Atlanta. You have the Chargers with Jim Harbaugh in there. I mean, the Cowboys we know are a great regular season team. So I think it's going to be a very, very tough hill to climb for this team, especially in the back half of the year for this Steelers team. So I like the under 8.5. If you want to take an alt under 7.5, get you some nice plus odds on that. I think this is going to be the year the Steelers are probably ending up 7-10. 8-9, it would be, I think, the ceiling for this team.
Yeah, it's interesting, right? Because if this team was coached by nearly anybody else besides Mike Tomlin, that win total wouldn't be so high, right?
I think it would be like 7.5.
Just his history of always being over 500.
Yep, 100%. And if it was anybody else, like you mentioned, I would probably think 7.5, maybe a 6.5. But I think 7.5 would be the number if it was anybody else other than Mike Tomlin coaching the Steelers team.
Yeah, and I mean, as we know in watching sports, streaks end. Streaks don't go forever. So if there's ever a year for Mike Tomlin to stumble and go under 500, I would say this is it. Starting off with a Russell Wilson that looked horrible last year for most of the season. And I kind of like Justin Fields as like a dart throw in fantasy in case he ends up starting. He was great for fantasy with those legs, but as far as winning games, I don't see it.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I think that for Justin Fields, look, we know he can run all over the football field. He's going to improve, right? And again, I guess you get more reps under your belt, you get more snaps. You're only going to get better. But from a fantasy perspective, yeah, I think Justin Fields is going to be there. But you're also in a division now where, like we talked about, right? We like the AFC North, Cincinnati, Cleveland, that has one of the best defenses. Baltimore. When those two teams match up, it's always a dogfight between the Steelers and the Ravens. So, yeah, I'm really down on the Steelers this year. If you can find a book that gives you for them to finish last in the division, they're probably a minus favorite just based off of the win totals, how they stack up. But I just feel like this is going to be a down year for the Pittsburgh Steelers this upcoming season.
I'm interested to see, like, I kind of think it's interesting because last year, like with Matt Canada there, like their offense was one of the worst. I know Matt Canada was much maligned by Steelers fans and otherwise.
Yeah.
I'm interested to see like what their offense looks like with Arthur Smith. Like, is he going to run a similar offense as he has before? It's kind of weird because he's going to be working with Russell Wilson, Justin Fields, which he hasn't really had those types of quarterbacks before. I kind of want to see, like, they don't have the receiver core is really barren besides Pickens. They got Roman Wilson, rookie, but it's just kind of up in the air what the offense will look like. I think. I feel like if TJ Watt's healthy and then they have Patrick Queen, I kind of like their defense still, but they added a lot of O-line, in the draft, but it's just kind of a lot of question marks with that quarterback spot.
Yeah. Yeah, with the quarterback spot, big question marks, and then relying on rookies to fill out your old line can be dicey sometimes for their first year, also. So definitely good to signal that as well. Any other like big holes in their depth chart, Tucker?
Oh yeah, cornerback and nickel especially. They don't really have a starting like slot corner right now. It's pretty barren. Like, they have Joey Porter Jr., but besides that, they have Dante Jackson starting on the outside cornerback, and he's pretty he hasn't been great the last couple of years. And then Darius Rush is their starting nickel right now, if you know who that is. He's a second year player. He was a 5th round pick last year. They got waived by the Colts. So he barely played. It's really I don't know what they're gonna do there still. So yeah, it's not looking great from the secondary.
Yeah. Kind of just since we were just talking about Russell Wilson, I just wanted to quickly go to one of the unders that I have circled at plus 120. The Denver Broncos under 5.5 wins at plus 120. I'm mentioning it now because obviously Russell Wilson just left there. They traded away Jerry Jeudy. They could technically, I guess, with Bo Nix, just run the ball behind Javonte Williams if he's able to stay healthy, because they did have a strong line last year, but they lost their center, Lloyd Cushenberry. So I'm wondering if getting that plus money under 5.5 wins for a rookie QB. That's not crazy, right, Munaf?
I don't think so. I mean, let's just say Bo Nix isn't ready to be the week 1 starter, right? Who's behind him? Jared Stidham and
Jared
Zach
Stidham.
Wilson.
Like, who are we really trusting Jared Stidham to win more than 5 games? You know,
are you trusting Zach Wilson to win more than
definitely not Zach Wilson?
So yeah, and I think that again, when you have a new quarterback coming in, this is going to be the second year for Sean Payton. There, he probably still implementing his offensive system. You mentioned the losses that they did have at the center position, also the wide receiver position. I think they'll be okay. Courtland Sutton is still there. You have Josh Reynolds, Marvin Mims, but a lot of those guys have been dealing with the injuries, right? I mean, Tim Patrick has been injury prone. And again, you're in a division where you're expecting the Chargers to be better with Jim Harbaugh. I know they have significant roster turnover. You have obviously the Chiefs there, and the Raiders. Look, last year when Antonio Pierce took over as the head coach of the Raiders, they were playing some really good. They were playing some really good football.
Yeah.
So they added some pieces as well, right? Devontae Adams was a huge fan of Antonio Pierce, and I think they made the right hire for sure. So all 3 of those teams, you can make the argument that did get better. Maybe Denver is a team that's taking a step back because they are going to have either rookie starting quarterback or Jared Stidham or Zach Wilson behind them. So again, like something like we talked about with the Pittsburgh Steelers, sure, the Steelers have a better quarterback situation, but I think for this Denver Broncos team, it might honestly, guys, just be one of the worst or bottom 3, but we didn't talk about the quarterback room.
Yeah, absolutely. What else are we missing from a depth chart perspective, Tucker, as far as I mentioned Lloyd Cushenberry leaving?
Their center, they're gonna have like a 3-way competition right now, like at center. So it's really same as quarterback actually, the 3-way competition there too. It's really up in the air. I know they say that they like their guys, but it's like they didn't bring in someone that, like, I know like Broncos fans wanted like someone like Jackson Powers Johnson, but he went to the Raiders instead in the draft. But I don't know. Last year, like their defense was pretty good though under Vance Joseph, but they're kind of the same issue as the Steelers with their secondary. They have Pat Surtain, who's like one of the best corners, but besides that, it's very weak. And safety depth is a concern too. They didn't really improve much. They pretty much just kind of lost stuff, and so I don't really know how I feel about it. I agree with you guys here.
Yeah, they had an expected, according to ProFootballReference.com, they had an expected win-loss record last year of 7-10, even though they ended up, finishing 8-9. And I think that they've got noticeably worse. So I'm glad you guys are in agreement. Take the plus money, plus 120 if under 5.5 wins. Munaf, what's your next team that you have circled that you like to talk about?
Yeah, so I mentioned Joe Burrow and the Cincinnati Bengals last year. Obviously, him missing significant time with the injury. They finished last in the division, so they'll be playing a relatively easier schedule this upcoming season. I know that there is some uncertainty with the wide receivers wanting new contracts with Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. But I think with this team, and again, a lot of it, and it's a big if, right, with Joe Burrow, if he's able to stay healthy, but I think this is a team that can honestly win the AFC North. They start off the season against the Patriots. I think that's going to be an easy game for them, obviously, with a rookie head coach and a rookie quarterback coming into your building. They have the game going to Kansas City in week 2, but you kind of go down the schedule, right? Washington, Carolina, the Giants, the Raiders, and then they have the Chargers on the road. They play the Steelers, and then Tennessee, Denver, Pittsburgh in the season. So I think it's an opportunity for Joe Burrow and Zach Taylor and this Bengals team to win. I think they could win at minimum 11. I wouldn't be surprised if they get to 12-5 this upcoming season. You see them as the AFC North champions. But again, the concern is going to be, is Joe Burrow going to be able to stay healthy? Because we've seen him with multiple injuries once he did come into the NFL. But this team and offensively, I think are going to be absolutely fantastic, led by Zach Taylor at their head coaching position. So based on their schedule and what I like from the Cincinnati Bengals team, I do think that they can win 11 games this upcoming season.
Yeah, I like that. And you mentioned Zach Taylor, well, yeah, a little preview because we're going to be talking Coach of the Year odds later. He's at plus 2,500, and I kind of like him as like a potential Coach of the Year because if Joe Burrow can stay healthy, they're a pretty loaded team, and you just went through their schedule. It seems pretty. I'm not going to say easy, but pretty nice overall for like the teams you named. We just talked about how we don't love the Steelers. They're playing the Steelers twice, stuff like that. So definitely like that. What are we missing, Tucker, from a depth chart perspective?
Yeah, no, I hope Chase wants to get paid. And then they also have they have Trent Brown, the right tackle, who's just a 1-year contract. They did get Marius Mims in the draft, who they hope can replace him. I still think their left guard spot is pretty shaky with Cordell Bolson, but it's all right besides that. Yeah, I mean, I like their defense. They lost Reader. Reader is the big loss on defense, kind of their leader there on the line. So it's going to be interesting to see how they brought a lot of D tackles in, like they drafted 2 in the 2nd and 3rd. So they're going to be going with a pretty heavy rotation there. So it'll be interesting to see if they're able to replace them effectively or not. But yeah, Burrow is really the biggest question with this team, though.
Yeah. All right, that is interesting. Let's go to do you have another one, Munaf Circle? Or do you want to go to teams to make the playoff bets?
I think it kind of ties into teams that make and miss the playoffs. So if you want to go there, we can go there. I can tie it in there.
So as we know, like 6 new teams tend to make the playoffs every season when they didn't make the playoffs the season before. Last year, the new teams were Browns, Steelers, Texans, Lions, Packers, Rams. Who will be this season? It's always fun to look at and circle. I circled some teams that have both plus odds to miss and make the playoffs that I find interesting, but I'll let Munaf start since he's our guest. Who do you like?
Yeah, Tucker's probably not going to like this one, but I think the Atlanta Falcons, I think there's a lot of value there at plus 185. So it's
I had them too. I had them too circled. Oh no, Tucker, I'm sorry. We're ganging up on you.
Totally get it.
So again, number one, it's Kirk Cousins, who's going to turn 36, 37. That's going to be your starting quarterback, but he's also
coming back from a major injury.
Exactly, right? He's coming back from a very, very huge injury, the Achilles injury. And you also have a rookie head coach. Oh, I don't want to call him a rookie head coach because he does have that head coaching experience in Raheem Morris, but
it's been a while since he's been a head coach.
Yeah. And he hasn't had a lot of success, during the regular season as a head coach. I think for all of us, the number 8 overall pick, why would you take Michael Penix Jr. at that spot when you just paid Kirk Cousins all this money to come be your starting quarterback? And I think at that point, you probably want to take
Cousins even came out and said, why did you do that? Which is really weird.
I think that would be something that would upset me. So, I mean, if you're in a division right now, that's pretty weak, right? Because we're past the era of Tom Brady with the Bucs. We're past the era of Drew Brees with the Saints. This is a division that's, we could say, probably one of the worst, if not the worst. I think you could put maybe the AFC South in that conversation as well.
But the AFC South has actually really improved.
They're improving now, right? So I expect the Panthers to take a step forward. Bryce Young in his 2nd year. The Saints are the Saints. I mean, it's Derek Carr there. How much are you going to get out of him? But it's also the fact, like, for this Falcons team, I feel like there's just a lot of hype coming in. Now, the advantage that you do have with this team is that they have by far the easiest schedule in the entire NFL, right? And I think that's going to be obviously only to their advantage. But the thing that does make me nervous about this Falcons team is, again, at the quarterback position with Kirk Cousins, you have the weapons around him, right? Bijan Robinson, who I loved when he was playing at Texas. I do expect Kyle Pitts to take another step forward, but I felt like just at the number at 9.5, which I do like the under as well. But you're giving me almost close to 2-1 odds for the Falcons to miss the playoffs. I know we mentioned at plus 185, McKee, but I think there's some serious value there. I would rather bet the no than the yes for this Falcons team. But again, if Kirk Cousins, God forbid, goes down with another injury, and then you have a rookie quarterback coming in and Michael Penix Jr., I think it's going to be tough for this Falcons team. So I think there's some holes at some other positions as well. I'm sure Tucker will talk about that as well. But I think 9.5 was a little bit rich for this Falcons team. So I took the under there for them, and then also for them to miss the playoffs at plus 185.
I like it. That is one that I had circled as well. Tucker, tell us why we're wrong or tell us why we're right. I mean,
Well, it makes sense because of
Yep.
how many people are betting on them. Like, there's a lot that are kind of hyping it again. Like, they got pretty hyped last year too, and this year they're sort of doing it again. I think they had similar win total betting odds last year. But yeah, it's just the question of if Kirk Cousins performs well. Like last year, it was that Ritter will not be worse than Mariota. He can't be worse than Mariota. It's not possible. And then they added tons of players. They had way more money last year, so they got Jesse Bates, who ended up being one of the best safeties in the league last year too. But still, they ended up getting the same record because of the quarterback spot was just abysmal, and then the offense was the play calling was questionable. Like, it's just all out of sync. So the hope is that it all gets revitalized. Like, they have on paper talent, but the question is if they can actually make it work. So I would say the main like weak spots they have are the secondary is what I wanted them to address, and that's where it's kind of up in the air. So AJ Terrell and Jesse Bates are really good, but behind them it's kind of some young guys who've played but had been inconsistent. So, and then Edge, of course, is like where they've been having struggles for 10 years since John Abraham. So, yeah, I'm hoping that like the new schemes might help, like with Raheem, like what he did last year with the Rams. On paper, their team looked horrible. Like, their defense looks horrible, like last year, but they were able to do very well in spite of losing tons of talent. So I'm hopeful, but I understand betting the 2-1 odds, so that's pretty good.
Yeah. What do we, staying in that division, what do we think about Saints making the playoffs at plus 170? I know it's just like the Saints, not that exciting, but, and this is something I brought up on a couple shows ago. You would think Derek Carr is like 40 years old, the way it seems like he's been around forever, but he's only like 33. So, he's still in his prime, I suppose. What do we think about plus 170 for the Saints, Munaf?
Yeah, I mean, I don't hate it. When you take a look at this team on paper, I think it's something similar to the Falcons as well. Like, they have a lot of talent, especially on the offensive side, right? Alvin Kamara, I know, missed some games at the beginning of the year last year. You still have Chris Olave, who's going to be, I think, a top wide receiver as he progresses through his career. Rashid Shaheed was really good last year. You added Cedric Wilson. And
I think if Kamara ends up missing time, I think Kendra Miller can.
Yeah,
he showed some signs last year at the end of last season, so I think he has some talent there.
Yeah, and then you still have Taysom Hill you can put into those, kind of those gimmick plays or those wildcat type of plays that typically does work out. I think my always concern with the Saints is I'm not a really believer in Dennis Allen. I think that he sets his team back a little bit with some of the decisions that he does make from, in game, and that can, it's the difference between one or two plays where it can cost you the game here. And again, for this division, it's wide open, right? Just because last year we saw Baker Mayfield play out of his mind. Can he repeat that success? I'm not sure. Then it just kind of falls on, all right, the Saints did finish first last year. So I think this division is probably the division that is only going to get one team into the playoffs. So that's going to be your division winner. So again, I think it's going to come down to the Saints. I don't know. I'm not sure what I think of the Buccaneers this upcoming season as well.
Yeah. You're saying you probably like the Falcons to not make it more than the Saints to make it, bet.
Yeah, I think that's exactly. I think you boarded there perfectly there. Yeah,
that's fair. You mentioned the AFC South already. Let's move over there. And the Colts are at plus 140 to make the playoffs, which I find interesting because I do think that is a better. I think that division will be stronger this year with Houston really taking a step forward last year. I don't know. What am I missing here? Why are the Colts at plus money to make the playoffs?
So I think it's a lot of it is based on Anthony Richardson coming back from the injury,
Yeah.
right? Because he didn't get a full season as the starting quarterback for this Colts team. He left, what was it, like week 2 or week 3? That ended his season pretty early. Now, let's just say he does come back, doesn't look very good. You added Joe Flacco. I mean, look, I know he's going to be a year older, but we saw what he did last year for this Cleveland Browns team. I think that's pretty solid for them to have at the backup quarterback position. But I think the concern that I always do have about this Colts team is that they really don't have much depth when we talk about the wide receiver position, right? Michael Pittman Jr. is always a guy that can get you. For the years that he's been in the league, I think I bet the over on his receptions because I think that he's going to get all the targets and he's going to make those receptions. But after that, I'm just really not sold on their wide receivers, right? You have Josh Downs. We saw flashes of it last year. Alec Pierce, but it doesn't really excite me. Jonathan Taylor, obviously a top 3, top 5 running back in the entire league. The defense I'm excited about, but again, a lot of teams that we're talking about, it feels like there's a theme that whatever you get out of the quarterback position is how far they're going to take you. So I think it's really based on what Anthony Richardson does in the second year, especially when he had a shortened season his last year in his rookie season, which I think may be the difference. But also, like you mentioned, right, the other teams in this division, Jacksonville is going to be that 500 team. You mentioned the Texans. They took a step forward last year. Can they repeat what they did last year because they severely overachieved? It's a possibility because of all the moves that they did make in the offseason that they addressed with getting Stephon Diggs and Joe Mixon. And then who am I missing? The Tennessee Titans. I think they're the coin flip in this division because they're going in a whole new direction as well. So
new coach. They added Calvin Ridley.
Will Levis, is going to be the starting quarterback there.
Yeah.
So how much can you really trust them? So it's a division that's up and coming with a lot of these young quarterbacks. But for me, a lot of the success for this Colts team is going to be on the shoulders of Anthony Richardson and how far he can take you.
Yeah. So it's what do you want to bet on him staying healthy? Really?
It's tough because he's a quarterback that likes to utilize his legs and run, right? And we've seen those type of quarterbacks. You talk about the Robert Griffins of the world. We've seen Lamar Jackson get hurt. It hasn't caught up to Justin Fields quite yet. I know he missed some time last year, but it always makes me nervous when you have a quarterback that prefers to running the football because he's one hit away from missing several weeks that can just derail your season.
But I mean, Anthony Richardson is built more in the model of like Josh Allen, right? Than he is. He is like a slender Lamar Jackson, but
yeah. And then you have a great insurance policy in Joe Flacco as well, right? I mean, if you need to get him in there for about 6-7 games, he can keep you afloat at 500. So I don't hate it. I'm a huge Shane Steichen fan for what he was able to do last year because it came down to the final game against the Texans last year, right? To win the division. So I don't hate it here, McKee.
Yeah.
To me, I think in my opinion, I feel like it's partially because of the Texans. Like a lot of people are betting on them to go farther, and so that's kind of causing the Colts to slide there. Like I feel like if the Colts were in the NFC South, they would probably be favorites there. Like I think being in that division in that conference is just a much harder bet there.
Yeah. I think so too. I think it's a lot of Texans love, which I like the Texans too. But I do think that the Colts could also sneak into the playoffs if Anthony Richardson can stay healthy. I did like what I saw in limited action last year. You do bring up some concerns with the wide receivers, but I do like their running game. And I like Steichen as a head coach. I think he's interesting at Coach of the Year odds as well. And we should move on to that topic. But first, because we don't have another ad read, I wanted to give Munaf an opportunity to do an ad for Munaf stuff. What is Munaf up to these days? Where can people follow you?
Yeah, you can follow me on Twitter, X, whatever you want to still call it. I still call it Twitter, at SportsNerd824. And like you mentioned, McKee, the Sports Gambling Podcast Network, NBA Gambling Podcast. I know you're the dawn of that, the founder of that. So carrying the torch.
You've done well to take it over, though. I couldn't. You guys have done more with it than I ever did.
Oh, but we wouldn't be there without you getting it started. So I still have to give you your flowers, of course. But yeah, we're winding down the NBA season. I don't know We've been paying attention to conference finals. We're almost to the NBA finals. MLB gambling podcast as well. If you're an MLB junkie, go Monday through Friday, discussing games, every single game, every single day. So if you want to come check us out, and then also the Propcast. I'm a huge player prop better. We have a podcast that's specifically devoted to just player props, whether it's the NBA.
Awesome. I love listening to that.
Whether it's the NFL. We're going to fire up MLB here pretty soon as well, getting some guys ready going for that. And then also you can find me on pregame.com doing the NBA pod and the MLB pod there as well. So keeping busy.
Get very busy, very busy. So much to follow there. All right. Let's bring up these coach of the year odds. There we go. Wait, that's what we want. All right. So, what stands out to you right away, Munaf, as a bet you're leaning towards?
So you talk about the coach of the year, and I'm a little bitter because of I felt like my guy D'Amico Ryans should have gotten it last year and they gave it to Stefanski, which I understand, right? There's a case to be made there for Stefanski, but and there's sometimes a formula, quote unquote, there for coach of the year odds, guys. A team that I'm looking at, either it's a rookie head coach that has the opportunity to take his team from that was in that third or fourth place in that division and get them to a division winner, or get them to the playoffs where they do something historic, right? So, I mean, I wasn't really intrigued by the favorites there. Matt Eberflus 9-1 with the Bears. I mean, we know the hype with Caleb Williams and such. Jim Harbaugh at 9-1. That didn't excite me.
It's just his big name, I feel like. That's why.
Yeah, right. And that's kind of I guess the tax that you're paying on that 9-1. I went a little bit further down the list. Dan Quinn at 18-1, I think, is very, very intriguing, because now this Commanders or Redskins team, whatever you want to call them still, they have pieces, right? So they added Cliff Kingsbury as the offensive coordinator for that team. You added Jaden Daniels, who was absolutely fantastic at LSU last year. And he steps into this team with being the starting quarterback. There are moves they made last season where they acquired some defensive pieces, and you added a head coach who's a defensive-minded head coach in Dan Quinn, which I think that defense is going to be, I think you could maybe make the argument they could be top 3 next year, top 5.
Wow.
When it's all said and done. And offensively, I think that's where the question marks are. I think Jaden Daniels is going to be really good, and I think that Cliff Kingsbury is going to do a really good job with this offense. You still have
I still have Kingsbury PTSD from the Cardinals. I don't know. Like he never seemed to have like a cooking offense with the Cardinals, but I know he was the head coach there and so he was worried about a lot more stuff rather than the offensive coordinator.
Yeah. So you added Austin Eckler into that running back room, right? He's still a guy that's a great fantasy darling. Brian Robinson Jr. is still there for you as well. I mentioned Scary Terry, Jahan Dotson as well. You added Zach Ertz. I know he's older, but you have some veterans on that offensive side.
And they also drafted a tight end, Ben Sanu.
Right.
Sano?
Yeah.
Sano, yeah.
Right. And then you look at the defense, right? Jonathan Allen, Deron Payne, Frankie Louvu, Bobby Wagner they added. I think that's a great veteran there.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm excited for this team, right? And again, you're in the NFC East where, yes, Dallas is a great regular season team, but they really didn't do anything to address their team to improve the roster. I mean, their biggest move in the offseason was probably bringing Ezekiel Elliott back into that backfield for the Dallas Cowboys team. The Giants, again, I don't trust Daniel Jones, and I know the Eagles will be the Eagles. So there's an opportunity that if this team makes it into the playoffs, that you can make an argument for Dan Quinn at 18-1. For coach of the year. The second one I like, I'll make this quick. Seattle Seahawks, we talked about in the NFC West. Mike McDonald. You're now in the post era of Pete Carroll.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's an opportunity for Geno Smith to bounce back for this year as well. I love their wide receiving group led by DK Metcalf. I think they're also in a division where I feel like the Niners are going to take a step back, guys. I'm not a Brock Purdy guy. I feel like that he's going to get exposed a little bit in this during this regular season. injuries are always a concern for this 49ers team. So you may see maybe a Christian McCaffrey go down and Deebo Samuel missed a couple games. I like their under win total as well for the Niners. So I think there's an opportunity that Seahawks, if they win this division, I think that Mike McDonald, being that first-year head coach, coming over from the Baltimore Ravens, who was the defensive coordinator last year, if he's able to coach that defense up, I think there's an opportunity for him at 20-1. So those were the two guys that I was looking at for coach of the year.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I would say if you're looking at the favorites, you're flushing your money down the toilet if you bet Robert Saleh. That is insane that he's 11-1. He has never shown me that he's a good coach at all. It's only the Aaron Rodgers hype and the Jets hype that's pushing him up those odds. I mean, he should be so much longer odds than that, in my opinion. If you want an 11-1, go ahead and take your guy D'Amico Ryans. If that's definitely a better bet, or even Matt LaFleur at 12-1. I feel like if the Packers have a really good year, I could see him winning it. But I'm with you. I like the longer odds. I would say that I do like Shane Steichen at plus 1,600. Just because I for the same reason we were talking about that the Colts could make the playoffs. If Anthony Richardson can stay healthy, I think that they are an exciting team. And then also Zach Taylor at 25-1. If Burrow can stay healthy, I can see the Bengals having a great season. What are you thinking, Tucker, on these?
Yeah, it's just so much, like narrative, the storyline basis for this type of betting. I would say if you're in on the Falcons, Raheem is pretty high up there, but he might be a good bet instead of betting on Falcons like winning the division. But it's just like there's so many in the air. Like D'Amico Ryans last year really easily could have won it over Stefanski. So
yeah,
I mean, I feel like I don't know how.
I think he had he not coached through 3 quarterbacks and still made the playoffs, I think Ryans would have won it, right?
Yeah. I feel like Dan Campbell, did he win 2 years ago? Is that right?
I don't.
Or did he not win at all?
Let me double check that.
I guess I don't. I mean, like I like him a lot if he hasn't won it, but at the same time, I guess they pretty much have to do what they did again. I mean, it's kind of a tougher.
Oh, it was Daboll a couple years ago.
Brian Daboll, yeah.
Daboll, okay, gotcha.
And then it was Vrabel 3 years ago.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. So I guess it's the question of if it's going to be someone who's like overcoming adversity like the Browns did last year, or it's going to be like 0 to a division winner.
It's a hard award to bet on right now because it is so narrative based during the season, but it is worth talking about just because I don't know, it's interesting. But Munaf, did you have any offensive player of the year or defensive player of the year ideas that you wanted to talk out?
Yeah, I mean, offensive player of the year, I know that Christian McCaffrey is going to be one of the favorites along with Tyreek Hill. But I just can't trust CMC to stay healthy for an entire season.
Right. And same with Tyreek Hill, actually. He got banged up last year too. So
yeah, 100%. I think the one name that does intrigue me, but I had a huge pause, was with Justin Jefferson because he does have a rookie quarterback now. At 15-1, I think that's a guy that can walk into 1,500 receiving yards. But I think that him having JJ McCarthy as the quarterback for this team, or I think Sam Darnold's with the backup there, that gave me a little bit of a pause there. I think that, again, if Aaron Rodgers is able to stay healthy, I think Garrett Wilson at 28-1 is really intriguing. I think he's going to be the number one target, something that was similar to what we saw with Devontae Adams and Aaron Rodgers for so many years that he was there for this for that Green Bay Packers team. So Garrett Wilson at 28-1, I think is very, very intriguing to me. I think kind of going further down the list, it's usually always some type of running back that's able to rack up yardage. Saquon, another guy
a running back that's going to be a featured 3-down back, right?
Yeah.
Like a Christian McCaffrey, which is kind of why I like Jonathan. I keep hitting Colts, but Jonathan Taylor 25-1. If he's healthy, if he's fully healthy this season, we've already see him be a number one back in the league. So
yeah,
definitely keep an eye on him at 25-1. I like that. But go. Sorry. Well, who were you going to say?
No, I was just going to mention one more, and we'll give some love to the Falcons here. Bijan Robinson, 20-1. I think he's very dynamic. He's a guy that can catch the ball out of the backfield. We saw what he was able to do in his rookie year. And again, when you have Kirk Cousins there, I think it'll be more of a pass-heavy offense because of the talent that you do have there. But Bijan Robinson is a guy that can something similar. I think could be on a path of like Saquon, like Christian McCaffrey. At 20-1, I think that's really, really something that's really interesting for me as well. I will definitely be putting money on those two for sure.
Wow, awesome! Is that tasty to you, Bijan Robinson, Tucker?
I think it's pretty nice. Yeah, I like it. I like it where it's at right now. I feel like everyone expects him to be. We all have seen him play, and he looks amazing. It just didn't come to fruition the first year. So I feel like this next year, hopefully, gets a lot more touches. Looks a lot better in the new offense. I feel like Amon Ra is pretty nice at plus 2,500. Like he is kind of like the Garrett Will. Like he gets targeted like crazy. I mean, for the Lions, he's Goff's guy. Besides tight end Laporta. But
my main concern is he's just not featured enough in that offense, right? Like they've got so many weapons there. That it would be hard for him to maybe stand out. I mean, he's obviously an awesome fantasy player. Definitely draft him in the end of the first round or early second round in your fantasy drafts. But I don't know. Am I crazy there?
I think for the Lions, I mean, you mentioned like they have options. You mentioned Sam Laporta. I think for St. Brown, it's again, he gets the targets for sure. I think the thing that kind of sets him back is he going to be able to get the touchdown receptions? If he's able to get into double-digit touchdowns, you're definitely going to be able to make a case for him at 25-1 because we saw how prolific that offense can be for this Detroit Lions. And again, playing in the dome, it's a faster track. I think that's only to advantage of those type of players. That's why I also do like Bijan Robinson because he's going to play those home games in the dome. But I think that, again, from year over year, he's gotten better. And I think this is going to be another year where he takes a step forward. But again, I want to see the touchdowns for Amon-Ra St. Brown because he's really a dynamic player. He's a great guy to have on your fantasy team as well.
He did last year. He did have 10, but
Yeah.
there was CD and Tyreek who just went ballistic with their yardage. They both had like 300, 200 more yards than him. So it's wide receivers kind of tough because these guys these guys who get so many receptions. It's just tough to tell who will be the receiving yardage guy, and then all the running backs mixed in too.
Yeah. All right, let's move forward. I've got a quick ad read, and then we'll get to our final section. Want your brand to hit the jackpot? Advertise on Ourlads Gambling Show. Hardcore football fans gamble more than any other sports fan base. It's a fact. Google it. In our game, we gamble on everything, but the only sure bet is your ad's awesomeness on Ourlads Gambling Show. All right, so make sure to check out team@ourlads.com if you want to email us about ad rates. Moving on, we are going to talk week 1 lines. I know it's really early to talk about this, but why not? The lines are out. Let's go for it. Did you have a game you wanted to talk about first, Munaf?
Yeah, we talked a lot about the Bengals. I like them. I'm going to lay the chalk in that first week with them -9 against the Patriots. It's a very tough situation for Gerard Mayo and Drake May to go on the road against Cincinnati.
Well, I mean, it's probably going to be Jacoby Brissett week 1.
Yeah.
But even Jacoby Brissett, not a great starter.
Yeah, and again, I just don't think that the Patriots have a lot of great players at the skill positions. That's something they've really lacked, and you can talk about how great Tom Brady was for this team and made those guys look really good. But I think the Cincinnati team, I wouldn't be surprised if this is going to be, come week 1, a double-digit favorite for the Cincinnati Bengals. So this is a great also opportunity for you to get down on a teaser leg for them as well. But I do think that they could, in their home opener, Joe Burrow back, I just think that this Patriots team is going to be having another top 3 pick this upcoming season. I know you like the under McKee on the win total for this upcoming season.
Yeah.
But I think it's just I don't think they have the offense to keep up with what the Bengals going to be able to, because if the Bengals put up 3-4 touchdowns, I don't think the Patriots can get 2 touchdowns this game. I'm not very high on their offense this upcoming season. And again, you have a lot of young guys. You have a rookie head coach going on the road here. It's a brand new system in the post Bill Belichick era, post Tom Brady era. I think Cincinnati rolls in this game in week 1 here. So I'm gonna lay the chalk here -9 with the Bengals. I would be not, like I mentioned, I wouldn't be shocked if this is at double digits come week 1.
Yeah. I love that. I feel like that is absolutely a great number there. I've already talked about how much I like the Bengals this year. A game that I circled that I found to be the most surprising line that I saw was the Browns -1 at home versus the Cowboys. I feel like the Browns, I know defense doesn't necessarily translate from year to year but they were such a strong defense last year. And as you already said, the Cowboys didn't do anything to really get that much better except add Ezekiel Elliott. So I feel like right now, laying just 1 point for the Browns at home is a great number, because I could see, but I mean, I guess I could see money come in on the Cowboys just because it's such a public team. Is that one I should wait on, Munaf, or bet now?
Yeah, I would wait, because I think, again, when it comes to week 1 and the public gets involved, America's team, quote unquote, they're gonna see them. Oh, they're an underdog. You're getting a point with the Cowboys. I think that public money will probably push them to probably be a pick or maybe even favorite come week 1. And again, Amari Cooper revenge game for him going up against his former team. So this is a number I'll probably want to wait on. But I do like your side here. I would be on the Cleveland Browns in this game here for sure. You're getting Nick Chubb back. You talked a lot about the offensive weapons for the Cleveland Browns, and I think for the Cowboys, they're really a one-trick pony that you're probably going to see Dak Prescott throwing 50 times a game, because they really don't have a running game. So, and the Browns secondary and their front seven, frankly, their defense overall has been one of the best for the past several seasons. So I think they can really limit. So yeah, I would wait on this number. You could probably get a better plus odds on that money line as well for the Cleveland Browns come week 1.
Good call. Good call. Do you have another game you want to talk about?
Yeah, we go to that Sunday night game. Matthew Stafford going back to Detroit. I like the Lions in the spot, -3.5. I just think that, again, they're going to be ready to go in this game. I think that post Aaron Donald era, the big question mark is going to be Kyren Williams. I know he's dealing with a foot injury. They're saying all the right things that he'll be ready for training camp, but I'm not sure if that's something that's going to linger into at least week 1 here. But I look at Lions at home, where they've been absolutely fantastic. I know this is a rematch of the playoffs from last year, but at 3.5 here, I think this number does move to 4 come week 1. Jared Goff, we talked about Amon-Ra St. Brown, Sam Laporta, Dan Campbell. You're on prime time opening night. I think the Lions do get the job done -3.5.
Yeah, anything we're missing there, Tucker, as far as the depth charts for Lions and Rams? I do feel like the Rams got a little bit worse while the Lions probably stayed about the same.
For me, the Lions improved, actually. I think just their main weakness was their cornerbacks, and they went hard addressing that through the draft and free agency. They traded for Carlton Davis. They drafted Terrion Arnold and Ennis Rakestraw. They also got Amik Robertson. There's one of their starters last year is their 6th cornerback now. So they look much better on paper on that secondary. They also brought in Marcus Davenport, so hopefully he can stay healthy. They got DJ Reader is the huge one from Cincinnati. So they really they did a lot of spending on defense, and I think that the offense will continue to be really good. Their O-line's one of the best, to me. And then the Rams, they lost Aaron Donald, they lost Raheem Morris, they lost Zach Robinson. I feel like that's going to be the big question, is what their defense looks like, because we don't really know. It's a first year Chris Shula. We don't really know how his defense will look. I feel like the Rams offense will be solid, but the defense is the big question.
I think McVay will figure it out, but not so maybe early in the season, right? I feel like they might stumble for a couple of games coming out of the starting blocks here. So really like the Lions. That's actually a game I had written down as well. Took that side too. All right, let's just talk about one of the biggest games, the Thursday night game with the Ravens and Chiefs. Chiefs favored by 3 points. I don't know. I kind of like the Ravens here plus the points just because I feel like the Chiefs might have Super Bowl hangover. They lost in week 1 last year after winning the Super Bowl. I mean, I know they only lost by 1 point to the Lions last season, but still, that's one that I kind of like taking the Ravens plus the points here. What do you think, Munaf?
Yeah, right there with what you mentioned, right? Super Bowl hangover. They lost last year, week 1. Revenge game for the Ravens as well. You have Derrick
Good
Henry
chance
now.
that Rashee Rice is out with a suspension, right?
Yeah,
For
Rashee
at
Rice
least week 1.
Yeah, 100%. So, we'll see if Travis Kelce's there or not. Maybe he's going to be at a Taylor Swift concert. Who knows?
Yeah,
that's going to be a distraction for him as well. But yeah, again, we've seen.
You don't want to get the Swifties on you, though. Munaf.
Oh yeah,
watch out!
not.
Watch out! You don't want them getting attacked. And I mean, Tucker kind of looks like a Swiftie.
We have a lot of Swifties who watch this show.
I have to watch what I say because my wife is a Swiftie as well, so I have to be careful around the house as well. So I've learned my lesson the hard way. But yeah, I mean, you mentioned the Rashee Rice situation. That may be a distraction for this team as well. And I think the big thing is that Jim Harbaugh, the preseason, we know the numbers, how great they are in the preseason. This team takes it seriously, and that translates into week 1 in that first month of September for this Baltimore Ravens team. So I think this game for this Baltimore Ravens team is going to be a confidence builder that, hey, we're going up against defending champs into the building. Let's punch them in the mouth. And they could get the outright victory here. So I think that right now, +3 is a number that you want to grab right now because I could see this getting down to 2.5. Come with when the sharps do come in on this Ravens at +3.
Yeah, when it is announced that Rashee Rice is missing the game for sure, I think that's something. And then they're going to be relying on Kelce, who admitted to taking the regular season not off last year, but he admitted that he kind of paced himself for the playoffs, right? So there's that, and then they're going to be relying on Xavier Worthy as their wide receiver, a rookie who is very talented, but we've seen rookies come in and stumble with the change of speed, especially guys who are like like the John Rosses of the world who are combine stars, but not necessarily translate to the field, right? So I really like the Ravens here. Are we missing anything else there, Tucker, on this game?
No, I agree with that. Like Rice being gone, and then also their left tackle is up in the air. We don't really know who's going to be their left tackle. They lost Donovan Smith, and then also losing L'Jarius Sneed too. It's like they didn't really add much. It's more they had losses, and then losing Rice will be huge for the game. So it's going to be like, Xavier Worthy and Hollywood Brown, and then Kelce, and he's I feel like he's getting older and older. I mean, he can't play forever. Yeah. So I don't know. I feel like every year the Chiefs start off pretty slow, and the Ravens usually start off pretty hot. So I like that too. My only concern is just that it's at Arrowhead, and that's always a real hostile environment, obviously.
Yeah. Absolutely. All right. Any other games you wanted to mention, Munaf, or should we get out of here?
I'll quickly mention this one. I kind of like your Cardinals in week 1.
I didn't want to bring them up, but yeah, let's do it.
I feel like this number moves to 7.5 because there are some big on that -7 for this Bills team. This Bills team has significant turnover this offseason, right? Stephon Diggs traded to the Texans. You lost Gabe Davis there as well. I'm not really sold on their running game. And this Cardinals team, I think they're only going to improve, right? They added, obviously, get Kyler Murray back, Jonathan Gannon in year 2, Marvin Harrison Jr. I think, again, this team is going to be ready to go in this game. I'm not really a believer in this Bills team. I know they like to beat up on weaker opponents, but I think the Cardinals are really primed to have, I think, a pretty good season with Kyler Murray.
Yeah, we saw them end pretty well last season. I mean, they fought it out every game, even before they got Kyler back, and then they stepped it up even better when Kyler came back. So
yeah, everything I'm reading about the Cardinals and Kyler Murray, that he's the first one in and last one out the door. So I think that's only a positive for this Cardinals team. So I think that
that might sound like coach speak, but
I mean,
it's better.
Maybe he's finally going to take his NFL career seriously.
I mean, for the amount of money that they are paying him, I think it's
I would
time to
hope
before
so.
they cut ties. But yeah, I think that's just an inflated number. I think this number does move past the 7 here, so I would wait on this. But I do like the Cardinals at least to cover the number in week 1.
Yeah. Anything we're missing there in Bills or the Cardinals side, Tucker?
No, I agree with that. The Cardinals added so much in their draft. They had so many draft picks. A lot of high caliber rookies they're going to have playing. Yeah, I feel like they're only going to grow here, and like you said, the Bills roster turnover was immense. So there's a lot more questions with the Bills, and a lot more hope I have for the Cardinals. So
Yeah.
I like that at 7, but like you said, probably better waiting.
All right. Well, thank you so much for watching the Ourlads Gambling Show. I want to thank our guest, Munaf. Where can people follow you, Munaf?
Yeah, follow me on Twitter /X @SportsNerd824. And you can get all of my work over on the Sports Gambling Podcast Network. You can download the app or just go to sportsgamblingpodcast.com.
Awesome. And thank you, Tucker Moss, the Duke of Depth Charts, for joining us again and giving your expertise. We'll be back next week.